Welcome to Soul Nectar, a podcast for women who lead by frequency, embodiment, and soul essence. It's a portal into a new paradigm of feminine leadership, a return to your natural state of being as a woman, rooted in feminine essence, embodied wisdom, and inner wholeness. Here, your soul is nourished by transmissions that drip with sweetness, the honey of your own inner knowing. Each episode is nectar, soft, sensual, soul-led.
Your feminine wisdom that reminds us of our infinity, our divinity.
Welcome back to the Soul Nectar podcast. I am so excited you're here with me to dive into all the magic that wants to be shared today. I could not wait to get home. I felt this urge and these words coming through me when I was walking through this little market in Mexico today. And I didn't feel this for a long time, where like the transmission comes through and I can't wait to get home to record another episode for you. And the essence of this episode is truly the essence of feminine magnetism and how it relates to your business and to your relationships and everything you want to attract. So I am currently in the final stages of birthing my oracle deck called Soul Nectar for feminine leaders birthing a new paradigm. And this deck came through in November 2024. I got the download. It was very clear. You have to create an oracle deck. It was so synchronistic and so clear. So I got an iPad, started drawing, and started to paint the cards and everything that was coming through. And then I was in Bali at that time. And then I was called to Mexico, which I had a lot of resistance to. But I ended up listening to my soul. And I moved to Mexico in February, beginning of this year. And for a whole month, I couldn't see anyone. I was in this huge channeling process where this deck came through and every single card got upgraded. And I started working with AI on a whole new level, and these transmissions came through. And I didn't see anyone. I was just so in flow and excited to birth this. And it felt like a new consciousness, a star birthed through me. It felt so high in frequency and so pure. And it was just birthing through me. And after the month, I felt so vulnerable and tender. Like I couldn't touch it for a few months. I was so in this exposed state, even though nobody has seen it yet. It felt like, whoa, what did I just birth? It felt otherworldly. It felt like it's breathing and alive. And I only now that I'm refining the cards, and it's been a whole year process of really upgrading and embodying and living every single card. So throughout this whole year, I always knew I'm getting initiated into the medicine of this deck. Every single card I've been living, breathing, moving through, sometimes 40 cards on one day, sometimes one card, and the codes kept on refining, and I really birthed something that helps most certainly you if you're listening to this and you resonate with my content. For women who don't resonate with this paradigm anymore, the world that's collapsing, the way of being even, and how to transition from this old paradigm into the new paradigm. You can call it old earth, new earth, because it's a shift in consciousness and it's a shift in frequency and embodiment that we are being called into. And yeah, you really have to be careful what you bring into, what you birth into this world, because you always get initiated into your own medicine. So I've been humbled. I've spent so much time in the in-between, in the unknown, in the quantum leaping, in the time leaping with all the emotions that come with it. I've been in the birthing canal for ages and ages. And sometimes it feels like I'm glimpsing out and then being pulled back in. And it's been such a humbling journey of bringing this deck to life. And with it, a death of a whole identity as me, as a woman, as a creator, how I birth, how I create. And this is the essence that came through today, where, you know, these moments where the dots connect and you're like, oh my God, I get this. I get it now. I get it. And so for a year, I've been trying to get the cover of this oracle deck. And in the beginning, I saw a whale eye that looked like a yoni portal with honey dripping out onto the planet and creating this honey-coated new earth grid. And I tried to get it right, and I'm not very patient. I used to not be patient. And there's so many factors that play into this. I've always been impatient. I was born in 20 minutes. This has a huge impact on me as a human. The way you're born is really impacting how you create and how you be in the world. And this year I've been initiated into patience and slowness and softness, and especially into creating from softness and letting things mature and ripe and wait. Because normally when I have a download, I channel and I birth it into the world. And that's also what I did in the beginning of the year. When it channeled through, I was like, okay, this is the deck. I'm going to pre-launch it. And then life really humbled me. And I didn't have the money back then to get it printed on my own. And my grandfather died, so I had to leave Mexico. I went to Germany, and for 6 months, I was just completely surrendered to the flow of life. I ended up going to Glastonbury and to Crete and on a boat, and had all these crazy adventures, and then back to Corfu to close this timeline of my era as this magical creatrix and artist that adorns women around the planet in the way I was doing it. So I released all of my collections. I let everything go, all of my clothes, all of my previous jewelry, everything. Without knowing what's coming, I just knew it had to happen like that. And if you've been following me for a while, I've had so many identity deaths and rebirths and really life-changing moments. And normally it's always life stripping away things and being on my knees and everything falling away or betrayal and things taken away. And it was so brutal in the past. And was my initiation journey, my karma clearing, my ancestral burdens that I had inherited, closing these loops, really clearing my energetic field. But this year it felt like a slow death that came much more from the inside. There was nothing crazy on the outside. I did all these choices of letting that go from an inner knowing without knowing what's gonna come. And when I've been playing with the deck, first it was the whale eye. I wanted it on the cover. It didn't come through the way I wanted, and I got really frustrated and impatient. And then my friend Livy, who I met in Mexico beginning of the year, she was like, my boyfriend is amazing in, with AI and Photoshop, and I'm sure he could help you. So we met and we tried to make it work, and it just didn't come through. No matter how often and how much we tried, it didn't get through. It was never the feeling that I wanted. And I've been playing with the deck cover for a year, at least 3 times a week, at least for 2 hours a day. And I've been playing with it and trying to make it happen. And it's crazy when I look, maybe I'm going to share these because it's probably around 2,000 covers that I created that never felt truly right. And it was driving me insane. It was always almost at reach, but not tangible. I couldn't show the feeling I was wanting to emit. So I kept on going, kept on trying. And it was evolving as I was moving through this transition as a woman, as a creator. From the essence is really from creating from overflow and not survival. And this is the pre-story, because this flower, which it turned into now, it's a soft, open flower with, so yoni portal, the cosmic womb, with the void in its center, from which honey, the nectar, is oozing out of and birthing a pearl, which is the feminine softness, the feminine magnetism in its essence, births the new earth, and we ooze our essence. We drip our soul nectar into the world when we feel safe, when we are truly in our essence. And there's a bee and a whale, and it's still in the final stages, but I finally am in this transition of getting the feeling right, because I am in this season and embodiment of remembering my feminine essence, not only remembering, but embodying it. And that's truly the essence of this. It's not enough to remember the template of the feminine. That we all know she's soft, she's radiant, she's receptive, she's like a flower. It's not enough to remember that and thinking you are that. And the ego can trick us in that. I thought for a long, long time, I am that. And I was that with myself, where I felt safe. I was open and receptive and soft. And then there's also this other part that was missing in the bridge between the full embodiment of my feminine essence and the remembering. Because I have this I share it sometimes, but I have this gift that opened up in some of my previous plant medicine journeys. And I haven't touched plant medicine in a few years, and I'm not planning to. All of the medicines told me you don't need us anymore, but they've been a huge part in my awakening, and my journey has really been to integrate and embody what I've seen and morphed into and emerge as that which I remembered. Because if we have these visions and cosmic and mystical experiences, we think we know it now and the world has changed, but nothing changes if it stays a vision you experienced. It's almost like a second entity that your soul remembers, but your body is not calibrated to that version at all. And that's why I'm so passionate about nervous system calibration instead of regulation, because we need to calibrate to this version of us that is us in its essence. And remembering is not enough. Seeing it is not enough. Thinking we are it is not enough. It's truly calibrating so our body feels safe to be that. And in one of the ceremonies, it was in Morea, I have a whole episode about it if you're curious about the details. It's called My 5-Hour Orgasm. And it was Vachuma, a very spontaneous ceremony, the only one I've done in Morea. And it was after a long period of trauma healing and clearing my field from so much pain from the past and from my family line. And I was really purified in density. I was really light, and it was the perfect moment for this. And my soul was like, okay, let's go. I show you the truth of who you are. And when I took the medicine, I started having orgasms, energetic orgasms, from every sense, and it didn't stop. From the beauty of nature, from watching the clouds, from eating a piece of mango and just being so present with every sense that it just rippled these waves of pleasure, and I was undulating and my body was just moving on its own, and it was so good. And I played the sound bowl, and from the sound I had an orgasm, and then from the sound the whole matrix, the whole room disappeared in a spiral into the sound bowl, into the void. There was nothing but blackness. And then from my orgasm I birthed the whole matrix back into form. And that's the power we hold in our wombs. We can birth entire new worlds, realities through our divine power. And it continued, and I had orgasms from just not even touching my skin, from the wind caressing my skin. And there were so many incredible moments. But the one that is really important for this episode that connected today, because I was always like, why do I have these experiences? Like, how can I use them to serve this planetary shift and to serve my mission and to serve this planet? And before I dropped on my knees from the mango orgasm, I morphed into a flower. So this is the gift I have. I can morph and shapeshift into things. One time I shapeshifted and became the Pacific Ocean on my paddleboard. It's like my human dissolved, and I first became the lagoon, and then I became the whole Pacific Ocean, and I felt where the whales are, and I became the consciousness of water. I remembered everything. And it's hard to explain because it's not really a human thing that happens, but I have this ability to shapeshift and to morph with consciousness. And I morphed into this flower. So first I became a goddess and I started dancing in ways my body had never danced before. And the shaman witnessed me. She's like, you're morphing into a flower. And I was like, I know. And I became this flower, and then I ate the mango and dropped on my knees, and I just remembered. Every cell of my body remembered the truth of the feminine essence, of my feminine essence, but of the feminine essence in general. And I remember with every cell of my being, I remembered the truth that has been taken away from us, that our softness, our receptivity is truly... Oh, I have a ringing in my left ear as I say that. It's a confirmation. It's the essence of who we are. And the truth is, it has been taken away from us because it's very powerful. From this receptive state, we can birth entire new realities. And it's not from force, not from hustling, what our society has drilled us into working like a man and everything this planet has evolved into in most parts of the world. It's our softness, like this flower, that only opens when she's nourished, when she has enough water, when she's safe, when she's... It's not a factor that's important, but when she's cherished. For us as a woman, we open. But if you look at the flower, that's really the essence. When she opens, and you can't force it, you can't tell the flower open, you can't pull on her petals to make her open faster. She opens when she's ready and when she's safe. And then the magic happens. She opens, her chemistry changes, and she naturally attracts without trying. The bees come, the flower's not running after the bees. She just is, and the flowers come. And it's this beautiful alchemy of the bees collecting the nectar. And through that alchemy, it creates the honey. It wouldn't be possible without the flower. It wouldn't be possible without the bee. We have this beautiful union. And it truly changed something. Because I remember when I had these orgasms, there was this huge fear embedded in my nervous system, even on the medicine, of like, is it too much? Am I intimidating someone? Is someone watching? Is someone feeling uncomfortable because of this? Because it's been a theme for lifetimes for me to, every time I emanate radiance, there's either people projecting onto me, trying to dim it, or there's even confrontation and women seeing it as a threat. Or also, it's a very vulnerable state. That's why we need discernment and boundaries to feel safe. It's not just the outer circumstances that need to be perfect. It needs to be our nervous system feeling safe in being our essence. And how this relates to business and relationships. And I've had this moment today at the market. I was like, oh my God, I get it now. I get it. Because the way my business was born, I had many businesses, but the one that really came from my soul, from my essence, And that's why I needed to move through all of everything I've been initiated into and humbled into, to be able to, for it to become what it wants to be. And I'm going to share the story a little bit so you can understand what it takes to be in your essence and to be that magnet so your people can find you. I'm going to break it down really simple, because the first time I started selling things was when I was 6 years old. I've always been very gifted with creating art. You could put me, and my grandparents say that with a lot of pride. And there's obviously a shadow to that as well, but they always said you can put her into the corner for 8 hours. She wouldn't ask for water, food, she would just create. I would get into these flow states where I could create so much magic. And I would constantly create new things. It was infinite, it was overflowing. There's no limit for my creation energy. I would create 8 hours a day, paint, craft. If there was no money, I would find ways to make it work. I had phases of things where I created mosaic, and even if there was no money, I would go to the place where people put their trash, and there were tiles, and I cracked the tiles, and I always found a way to make it work. And when I went to Croatia on this camping spot with my grandparents, I started traveling with them since I'm 1 year old. And every year we went to this caravan spot in Croatia on the beach. And I think I just started primary school, or I wasn't even in primary school. Doesn't even matter. I was really young. And I created these bracelets out of knots. Maybe you know them, where there's a lot of strings and then you can create patterns with knots. And I created them for myself, and then I had too many at some point. I created them for my grandma and then for friends, and I was just on the beach creating them, not even caring if someone saw me. I was just so in my joy of creating. And suddenly people started approaching me, and they were like, "Oh my God, I love your bracelet. Can you make me one?" And I was like, "Sure." And that's when my entrepreneurship started. And I started charging for my bracelets. And then I had a little chair with a little pillow, and I had my little bracelets lined up. And all the people who walked past were so amazed by them. And it's not an amazed of like, "Oh, cute, let's support this little girl who tries to make money." It was like, "Oh my God, I need one of those. Can you make it in this color? And can you make it like that?" And I was like, "Sure." So I had a waiting list for my bracelets. And that was truly the essence of my feminine magnetism. I wasn't trying to sell. I wasn't trying to be someone. I wasn't trying to get attention. I was simply in my own divine connection of creating because of the joy I had with it. And it's almost like my hands were channeling the divine through me. And I spent the whole 6 weeks selling these bracelets, and I made, for that age, a lot of money. And I remember buying some handbags on the market and some shells, because I've always been a mermaid, and I felt so amazing. I was like, wow, this is incredible. And I've created a lot of businesses in my life. I had a yoga studio in Munich 11 years ago. I wrote a book. I was a school teacher, but on the side, I always tried things to get out of the system. And I thought I needed to feel safe and have evidence before I could quit. But that's a whole different story. And I had a crafts brand where I would do huge dream catchers and macrames and candles and feather earrings and all the things I loved. But I treated it mostly as a hobby. And I would pay for the materials. I was like, great, now I get paid for my hobbies. But it didn't make me feel safe that I could make this a living. It wasn't even a timeline I dared to dream. It was like something I love, I know I'm good at, but I treated it as a hobby. And obviously, if you believe it's a hobby, it shows up in the world as a hobby. And I let that business go when I moved to Morea. And I let everything go. All the materials, everything I ever owned, my apartment, everything. And I've created so much in my life. So I let everything go to follow my soul, to move to Moorea, an island in the Pacific I had been seeing for 15 years in my visions. And they came randomly. Sometimes I would just ride my bicycle and suddenly see turquoise water and white sand, and it always made me cry because it was this longing for home. And a year prior, I finally had found the island. I knew where it was. A friend had sent me a video on Instagram, and I just dropped on my knees crying because I knew I had found a place that everyone told me doesn't exist. I was like, I knew it. So I gave up my whole life, moved to Moorea. In my fantasy world, I thought I'm gonna be so rewarded for my courage, and the happy ever after story would begin, where I would meet my husband, we would make some babies, I open a retreat center. Like, that was the timeline I was dreaming about. And sometimes life has to humble us a little, or to show us how little we are dreaming, to realize a lot of these visions sometimes are really limited by our trauma, by our pain, by all the limitations we grew up in. So I had been creating an online business back then, and I was doing online retreats that slowly built, and I was diving into business deeper and deeper. I started the podcast, and then I launched the online retreat I had launched a few times before, and it was consistently growing. So it went from 9 women to 19 women to 29. I was like, great, this is going to be my 50 women retreat, and it's going to get me for the next few months. I launched it, and I had 1 woman signing up, and it crumbled me. It activated all of my survival fears, because Moorea is one of the most expensive islands on the planet. I needed to pay rent, car, insurance, everything. And I was like, fuck, I'm gonna die on this island. I didn't know how to make it through that, and how to survive, and how to get the money for the rent. And I was really at an edge. And I had a dream of a woman I had followed on Instagram, and I didn't even know what she was doing. I just had this dream where my soul showed its color and her color, and she said, you guys have the same soul essence. She will show you the next step. She will support you. You have to invest. Like, this is the next step. And I reached out to her, and I did the craziest thing and invested the last money I had on a business coaching with her one-on-one. It was the biggest leap of faith financially I had ever done, because it meant if this is not working, I will not have food, which I don't do anymore in that way. I prefer a much more regulated nervous system state of creating. But back then it was like this leap of, I believe in myself. I believe I can do this. And it did. It worked. So I started building my online business. I started mentoring women one-on-one. I started launching online programs. I started teaching women and training them and becoming feminine embodiment leaders. I was really committed to my mission. And I tried, and I also shared more about sacred sexuality and the things that I was really passionate about and that had really changed my life. And it was still kind of not flowing the way I knew it could flow. It was still enough, but I was in survival still. It felt exhausting, and it felt draining. And because I didn't have clarity on who I'm serving exactly and what I'm offering, and I didn't have the energetic boundaries to not take everything on, I burned out almost. And I was at this point where I didn't know what to do anymore. And I went on a hike. That's always what I do when I get into my head and I'm spiraling and I just want to panic. I switch off my phone and I go into nature. So I went barefoot on this hike, and I was so much in my head. I was so much in my fear of dying on this island, basically, not being able to make it work. And I remember being on this swing where you overlook these incredible, insane, beautiful mountains that look like a dragon island. And I said to Spirit, I was like, okay, I'm at my limit. I've tried everything. I've shared what came through, because sometimes I had downloads. I had created a program, I launched it, and no one signed up. And that happened a few times. So I was really like, I'm at my edge. I don't know what to do anymore. Please show me. And then this thought hit me of, okay, the only thing you haven't done is pausing everything and letting it go for a while. And that thought felt like the scariest thing in that moment, because I needed to pay my bills, and like that was nothing my human would have chosen. And that thought hit me, and I was like, no. Okay, well, if this is the truth, if I'm supposed to pause everything, then send me a butterfly and a dragonfly. And then within a second, a butterfly and a dragonfly almost hit me in the face. Was flying so close to me. I was like, damn it. That's not what I wanted. But I knew it was the truth for me in that moment. And so I paused everything, logged off Instagram, and I went offline for a whole month. I went to these tiny islands in French Polynesia, an hour away flight from Moorea, called Tiki Hau, was the first atoll. And there's nothing but tiny islands shaped in a circle, huge circle, nothing but ocean. There you really feel like you're at the end of the world, because it's all 7 flight hours from every mainland away. So I arrived, and this month felt honestly like 30 years. Time stretched, and what seemed to be paradise on the outside, it felt horrible on the inside. Everything was coming up. All of my fears, my deepest fears, my insecurities, my doubts, everything amplified, because there was nothing to distract myself from. Every day felt like, oh my God, it wouldn't end. An hour could feel like a month. Time would just stretch into infinite. And I would just sit with it and be with it and let myself be bored and let myself be scared and let myself feel so lonely and so like the universe abandoned me. That's how I felt. I was like, I tried everything. I did this courageous step, and all of my victim consciousness would come up. Like, I don't deserve this. I'm alone. Like, I'm so different. And I just sat with it. I didn't distract myself from. I felt it all, and it was brutal at times. There were moments where I thought I cannot do this any longer. And I spent 10 days on each atoll, and there were no humans. And to keep my sanity, I had bought some jewelry material in Tahiti before I left, and with no intention of even selling anything, nothing. It was just for me to not go insane in this month. And I started creating jewelry for myself. And in Tahiti, you have these incredible black pearls that felt so symbolic for my journey, because I was so deep in the depth of my psyche. And the pearls for me represent like the purity and the wisdom you gain in the darkness, like the gems of truth you found in your own subconscious. And I started creating naked on the beach, bathing in my misery. It's not even that my creative juices were flowing like crazy. I was just maybe 30 minutes a day I would create in between laying horizontal, staring at the clouds or the ceiling, not knowing what to do with my life and why I'm even here and who I am. There was nothing. My whole identity dissolved, because I had been moving through so much purification of my human, so much pain alchemized through my body. In these 7 months prior, I had been feeling and releasing so much anger and pain from my human vessel that I didn't know who I was anymore without that pain. I was like, am I even this coach and this mentor? Or was this just trauma-based? I had no idea. There was nothing tangible in my identity to hold on to. And then something miraculous happened after this month that truly felt like lifetimes, not pleasurable lifetimes. It felt like a never-ending ayahuasca ceremony without medicine. I saw humans again for the first time. And I didn't feel magnetic. I didn't feel like anything. I was like, great, I didn't really gain any wisdom in this. I was just wanting for this to end. And then I remember the host of the place I was staying was taking the boat and then the taxi to drive me to the airport for me to catch my plane to the next atoll. And we picked up another guest from another island on the way. It was a couple. And the woman was sitting behind me because I was sitting in front with the driver. And she tapped on my shoulder and she was like, "Excuse me, where did you buy these earrings?" And I was like, "I made them." She's like, "Oh, I love them. Can I buy them?" And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "I really love them. Can I buy them?" And I was like, "Okay." And I pulled them out of my ear. I didn't know what to charge. And I gave her the earrings. I thought, wow, this was strange but beautiful. It felt amazing. And it reminded me of this young me that just was being herself and sold so effortlessly. And that was always a dream I had, but everyone called me delusional for that. I didn't think it was possible. And the woman, the owner of the place of this island, specifically saw me creating jewelry. And she was like, "I used to work in the pearl industry and I have all these pearls left. And I want to gift you some." And she gifted me a full hand of black pearls, which is worth a lot. And I was like, oh my God, it truly moved me to tears. Every atoll has changed me so deeply. It reminded me of what unconditional giving and receiving truly feels like. She didn't give it to me so I could give something back to her. She didn't give it to me with an agenda. She truly gifted it to me because she wanted to. And it makes me so emotional because it's so beautiful to be that person on both ends. It feels so good to just receive. And I've been practicing that as well, to give from that place, to give from purity without expecting anything, without wanting anything in return. And I went to the next atoll and I started drilling, learned how to drill from this beautiful man who had a dream of working in a pearl farm and came from France 30 years ago by himself, and everyone called him crazy. And now he opened a pearl shop after working for a pearl farm for many years. And he was so passionate about it in his little shop. And I learned how to drill from him. So this is how it all started. And I just started making more jewelry. And it continued that women would approach me everywhere. There were not many humans I saw in that time, but women would suddenly be next to me on a plane or on an airport or on the beach or in a cafe, in a restaurant. And they would always come and say, "I love your jewelry. Can I buy it?" And I was literally selling and adorning women off my body. And that's what clicked today. My magnetism didn't come from trying to sell. It didn't come from proving that my jewelry is the most magical one. I was just being me, like the flower that opens because she's in her essence, and the bees naturally come. So these women found me. Even men approached me and wanted something for their woman. It was so effortless and natural. But it's such an art to stay in that state. So what happened was that this timeline suddenly opened of like, wow, maybe that is possible. That the thing that comes most effortless for me could be the thing I'm meant to do and live from it. Because I thought I'm going to be homeless if I do that. But I thought, okay, I'm just going to see if this is just a crazy coincidence. And I ended up going to Mexico. First time leaving French Polynesia after a year living there. And it continued. Women were literally crazy about my jewelry, no matter where I went. Sometimes I just wanted to have a coffee and ended up 8 hours on that table creating jewelry for women and husbands who wanted to adorn their woman. And I could hardly keep up. It was so effortless and so fast and so synchronistic, magical. I felt like I'm tapped into something. And I went back to Morea, and then I came back to Mexico. And it continued for months and months. It just felt like the universe is sprinkling magic everywhere I go and sent all these beautiful women to me. And it continued for quite a while until something shifted. And I only recognize today exactly what it was. It was when I didn't treat it as a hobby. A few months later, I went back to Mexico and my whole life got stripped away. Literally everything. My health, I was told to die by a doctor, so my health got stripped away. I had to surrender fully that I might die. My business was stripped away because in these dark months, my soul told me you have to burn everything to the ground. This is not what you're supposed to do right now. So I let everything go, the whole business I had created. I had a team of 4 at that point. I just burned everything to the ground. So my business, my health, all of my friends got stripped away all at once. From having this magical sisterhood portal in Mexico, everything was gone within days. My family, I had big revelations and boundaries I needed to set in that year, so it felt like my family got stripped away. Everything got stripped away that my identity was attached to. And then the last thing was that Morea got stripped away from afar while I was in Bali in a really brutal way. Like, that's the story for another point. But yeah, it was very intense. So there was nothing on the outside I could attach myself to. And that's when the timeline opened of me being this creatrix that adorns women. And for a while it was bringing up a lot of fear. My biggest fears of inherited fear, but also my own fear of just not having safety in it. I didn't feel safe that this could really work. I had so many doubts and it was so inconsistent as well. It wasn't like overflowing anymore. And it's because I got more and more into my head. Okay, now I'm going to make this a business. And I paid thousands of dollars to get a website and to set the business up and to structure everything and to create campaigns and shootings. And like, I wanted for it to be perfect. And every time I launched a campaign that I worked on for weeks and really incredible visuals and storytelling and art, not a single woman would buy anything. And I was so confused. It gave me so much anxiety. I was like, fuck, did I just let this timeline go? And it doesn't work. But it truly was that I was stopping to be in my natural essence and trying to make it work. I was trying to be in my essence, which kills the magic. It doesn't work that way. It's like you force a flower to bloom open when she's not feeling safe and ready. And you're like, no, I have to pay food and rent. You have to open now. It doesn't work that way. And the more I tried to make it work, the less it was working. And it was always in these moments, and I think that's why I needed so many intense initiations, because every time I surrendered, because things got so intense, like a woman throwing my things into the ocean in Morea when I was in Bali, that was so intense for me, or a friend betraying me and taking the money she had gained from selling my car, which was so much money for me at that point, still is. It was like 5,000 euros, and she just took it away from me. She stole my money. And there were so many things happening at once that was too much for me, and it just killed the magic. All of my fears amplified, and I was not in my natural essence anymore. I was just surviving. And today I realized the connection between, and you can apply this to business, to sex with a partner. Like your yoni is like this flower. She doesn't open because he wants you to open. I had so many partners that told me something's wrong with me when I didn't want to sleep with them. But when I look back, it was always when my heart wasn't met, when there wasn't presence and reverence, when I just felt they wanted to get their needs met and they were not attuned to my body, that she just shut down and was always very, very clear. Like I could never have one-night stands. I could never open to a man who didn't meet my heart. And it's the essence of the feminine, that we need to be approached with reverence. Just like a flower, you approach a flower with reverence, with awe of its beauty. And then your yoni can soften. It's nothing that can be forced. Even if you would pretend to be reverent, even if you would pretend to be present and slow, your body would feel it. If he does it to get something, she would feel it. She wouldn't open. And then we can get in our heads. And if we're not anchored in our truth of the feminine essence, we can think there's something wrong with us. Or we can think, all the things that are not true. And in a moment where I morphed into the flower and I remembered the essence, I was like, oh my God, this is it. I just remembered the truth so deeply. But it took some time to integrate and to not only remember, but embody my feminine essence. And it's been such a humbling, beautiful journey to continue to bring this message into the world and to make women remember too that they don't have to exhaust themselves, that they don't, have to prove and to hustle and to explain themselves. They just need to be themselves in their essence. And it looks different for everyone. Not every woman has the same story as me. That's why it's so complex and so unique in the story, in the journey you need to go to come home to your soul and your feminine essence. And it's so connected. And that's when your magnetism turns on in your unique way. And that's what I'm so passionate about, to walk with women. And it's the essence of everything I'm creating, is this remembrance that is safe now to embody, because for a long time it wasn't safe. It wasn't just taken away from us. If you go to Egypt, the goddess faces have been scrapped down. There were books burned. They burned women with power because it was dangerous for the paradigm we were living in. But now we're birthing this new paradigm where it's finally safe, hallelujah, after thousands of years of suppression, repression, to embody the truth of the feminine and to embody the union, the wholeness from within, and to source ourselves from within. And when you see me posting and sharing dripping flower yonis, it's truly that essence of sharing from your essence, from your soul nectar into the world, because she feels finally safe to open, to ooze, to radiate with her magnetism, with her radiance, to be her no matter what. And that's the thing, the more light you inhabit in your human vessel, the more density you purge, the more it will trigger the ones who haven't looked at their shadow yet and haven't integrated it yet. And for a long time, this was keeping me away from stepping into my power, stepping into my light. Because I felt like if this watered down version already triggers so much and I get so much projection and threats and all the things, what will happen if I step fully into it? I'm still on that journey to step into it more and more, to feel more and more safe in my body and my nervous system, to be me without trying, without proving, without forcing, but just being in my essence. And that's only, you can apply this even to creativity. I can only create when I'm in that state. I can't force my creativity. I can't even touch my tools if I'm in a huge death portal. I can't. I cannot touch my tools. My hand will reject the tools. It's like your yoni is not ready to be penetrated and you let it happen. That's how it feels with my creativity. If I'm not connected, if it's not flowing, and it's natural that we go through these cycles where there's death and there's rebirth, and even like the flower, she blooms, but no flower blooms all year, she dies, and the seeds create new flowers. It's a cycle. We are such cyclical beings. And to honor that, only then the outside world will honor it too. So I hope this helped you a little bit to remember and to apply this to your own journey and to your own magnetism, and to feel, when do you feel most aligned and in flow and connected. And sometimes we need to try 1,000 things to remember, and it's often the things we used to do effortlessly as a child that didn't get the credits back then, so we just put it in the box that it's worthless. And we even offer it for free to the wrong people who don't honor it. But I truly believe we get to be supported abundantly by the things we love the most. And we serve this planet the most by us embodying our soul. So let me know how this lands. I would love to hear. And I see you next week.